Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to another one of my story analysis, I guess. Last time I did one of my friends one of his poems, and that was a really good poem. And even when I was reading, I knew it was good, but in retrospect, looking back over it, it's actually really good. And he wrote another poem recently that was it's like 72 pages, and I'm gonna do that one eventually on this channel, but it's gonna take a bit because it's a lot. Anyway, I read some of this yesterday because he sent this to me when I was waiting to go home from my mom's work. His GD bullshit. I only have 4 hours there, and then I have to spend 3 hours or whatever at mom's work waiting to go home. So I read some of this there, and I thought it was really good, but I wanted to save it till I got home to actually do the full thing. It's called Roots, and that title I think is interesting because of what I read. Um, Chapter 1, Furl into a Fiery Frenzy. I just love that. I love that. Oh, God. Right. Tristan Marvin savored the snack-sized gelatin that was in his lunchbox. Came with a little spoon to scoop the jiggly and translucent texture. After scraping the edges of the cup, he threw it out and stood from chair in the security office of the Ullamayer Museum. I can't. It's such a funny word. The trash would be taken. Oh my god! The trash could be taken out tomorrow, he thought, and wandered out into the dark corridor, lit only by the dingy yellow light of a singular light bulb. The light was stale and piss-colored, and it bored Tristan, but the enveloping darkness of the rest of the corridor bored him ceremoniously more. I fucking love that sentence so much. I was telling him when I was reading this that he could be really good at horror if he actually attempted to do a good horror story. I think he'd do amazing, and you'll see more of that in this. It's really good. Every day, he further and further realized that his job was for the brave, and that his bravery would be tested one day, and they wouldn't be prepared. A break-in, a fallen sculpture or painting, even a spider on the wall would send him blazing out the front door to never return. Never experienced any of these problems, so he stayed, day after day, strolling through the halls and staring at the art he knew to be worthwhile but couldn't appreciate. Oof. Oof, that's tough. Tristan Marvin didn't like talking about his past. It horrified him to think about the passage of time. As he walked the exhibit of Charles Darwin's adventures and writings, he thought, there's a man I envy, someone who can explore, discover, and invent. I read that completely fucking wrong. Someone who can explore, discover, articulate, and invent. The repercussions of this man's actions have spun the world on its axis ever since, and yet here Tristan was, in awe of him rather than competing with him. Chasing stature among humans is worthless, he thought. We are all going to die either way. The rationalization haunted him, though, for a reason he did not know. Maybe it was the dark. Maybe it was the peering, lively eyes of Darwin's self-portrait following him as he exited the exhibit and entered another dark, stale-lighted corridor. See what I mean? He could be good at horror. He could be good at horror if he tried. This whole bullshit, the rationalization haunted him though, for a reason he didn't know why. Maybe it was the dark, or maybe it was the peering, lively eyes of Darwin's self-portrait. That is fucking. That's how you build paranoia. I love it. I fucking love it. I'm not very good at analyzing shit on the fly at all. So if he's watching this, I'm sorry if I suck or whatever. I don't really. Ugh. This hallway wasn't like the last hallway. The last one was hallway B1, and this one was hallway B. Hallway B1, that's a bit redundant, was labeled as a secondary hallway to hallway B because hallway B was covered with paintings from all kinds of painters and visual artists. Tristan barely slowed down to look at the paintings because it was too dark to really invoke the symbolism of them, and he was in a hurry. The security cameras would only malfunction for 25 minutes, before a call would be made to his department head, who was silently sleeping away, miles away in a suburban neighborhood, spooning his wife. Wow, that's okay. The urgency in his step had to be controlled because the cameras only lost visual, not audio. But he still moved as though he had somewhere to go, and he did have somewhere to go. With the most delicate handling, Tristan unlocked the latch on the basement door, the cement door frame with the thick steel form, and with the most graceful twitches of the hand, creaked the door wide open as if it were the emergency brake from a beat-up car, ridiculously loud. Tristan cringed and hoped into the abyss of the night on the other side, hopped into the abyss of night on the other side, and carried the door to a close, where it softly erupted into a clattering clank. That is such a fun phrase to say, clattering clank. Phase 1 of the mission was complete. Tristan felt for the light switch that he knew was on his right. His hands felt the rusty, mildew-flavored sheetrock, but there was no switch. The first failure of the mission. Tristan then realized that the light switch was at the bottom of the stairs, and this one was a light switch for the hallway lights. Thank God that the visuals are malfunctioning. Tristan stood as he waited for his eyes to adjust to the deep. After about a minute, he took his first step. It was his right foot. Thank God for the banister. With each time that the rubber soles of his sneakers clapped the cement stairs, a rippling tap cascaded like a droplet of water plopping into a sea of oil, vibrating the walls across the entire basement, which forced Tristan to fully fathom the immense stadium-sized storage facility that he had just walked into. A creeping tingle shot from the bottom of his spine up into his amygdala and made him shiver with fright. Not only did the sound scare him, but the fact that he could see only 5 feet in front of him led him to understand the capability of a monster lurking in the depths. Tristan's imagination revolted. It materialized hundreds of bat-like swarms, lizard-like eels, phoenix-like chimera, and all sorts of tornado-winged apocryphals. The sounds whispered slithering slogans of mischief into his ear, hatching diabolical deterrences, warming him up to the danger while also petrifying him into almost high-tailing it right back out. Courage hibernates. We don't know if it's dead or not until we desire its presence. Courage strengthened him in this moment. My God, dude. Ah, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. The sentences flow so well, in my opinion, and at least in some cases. There are some issues with, like, redundancy. Well, there's one issue with redundancy that I saw with, like, hallway B11. That's a bit redundant. But, like, at the same time, I'm loving this. I don't see how people can complain about verbosity and format in his stories because this is not verbose at all. This is like fucking maybe 11th grade reading level, I'd say. I don't know. It's not hard to read. And also the whole horror aspect I was talking about earlier comes into full effect here. Like this whole thing here. Wow. They aren't real, Tristan pleaded as his hands finally brushed the light switch and the hangar lights clicked on. Each sector lit up an array of towering boxes, dangerously large machinery, scaffolding, cobwebs, bookshelves, easels, and various other structures of incomprehensible importance. The relief washed over him, and he brought his hand to his neck to self-soothe the goosebumps that slowly lost their swell. A self-portrait of Rembrandt was at the front of the mess, staring back at him with a remorseful but curious nonchalance. He had thought it to be a real person at first, but his heart leapt from his chest for a slight moment. When the eyes dilate from the light, it's harder for them to fully comprehend the world looking in. The accuracy at which Rembrandt had for the effects of aging made you understand his will to capture the molding and the folding of human facial features. An ambiguous roller coaster. He looks like he's chewing something. Tobacco? Was that calm back then? I have no idea what painting he's talking about. So you know what? We're gonna look it up. Um, I want to see this because I have no idea what he's talking about. Oh, huh. That's a creepy painting. That's a really creepy painting. God. If Rembrandt painted this entire portrait while looking in the mirror, and through the art of his replication of the image became attached emotionally to the work of art, wouldn't that make him or any other self-portraitist Narcissus? Oh, that's so good. I love aphoristic thoughts like that, and I told him so when I was talking to him in DMs. I love that sentence. It's so good. I love that kind of aphoristic bullshit in my writing. Tristan didn't have time to ponder the questions that the process of visual art inspired, so he let the antic of fear pass over him and unentranced himself from the disheveled and saddened onlooker. No shit, that dude looked fucking sad in that painting. What the fuck? Tristan, at the moment he started to walk past the painting, oh my god. At the instant he started to walk past the painting, happened to step on a small spring. The man slipped and fell onto a gorgeously preserved cushioned throne, barely contaminated by the dusky dusk. That's fun to say, dusky dust of the other pacified art goods because of a glistening polyester sheet, which Tristan removed after he shook himself from his stumble. What was revealed was a fluorescent and pure pink cushion with an embroidered insignia of Queen Elizabeth II. Aren't we already on Elizabeth II? I don't know. Yeah, I that the Queen of England though, the current Queen of England is a fucking old person. Jesus. The wood was a polished bronze that curled in multiple different patterns that, to the touch, were masterfully carved. Discordant but symmetrical designs of flowers decorated the pink fabric. So, Sewn in, probably by a maiden of the high class of women seamstresses that enlivened the castles with their chugging and whirring of needle and thread. The comfort that the plush provided was exquisite enough for the queen herself, Tristan thought mightily, before the confidence and coquetry of his thought caved in, and his situation's gravity was rebirthed. Many a time he could process his this in this, many times he could process this indefinitely seasonal fortress, but for now he must sustain movement. That seems like it's a bit hard to say, not gonna lie. Whatever. Like, to read it in your head, fine, but like when you're trying to read it aloud, it's a bit hard. A light flicked from near the left wall of the warehouse. Tristan's head snapped towards it like a boa constrictor. How does that even make it? What? I guess it's a simile, but like, no, it's not. I'm sorry, I'm stupid. It's just a weird comparison, I guess, to me. I get what it's trying to do, but it's just a weird comparison. He launched himself over a row of boxes down a pre-existing path toward these red strewn particles straying all the way to the ceiling. Before Tristan opened the box, he said a silent prayer. Color, you are the begotten waste of light, the recycling of the holiest wake, into the imaginative imagery to see the haste towards heaven's golden gates, illustrated by St. Paul, orchestrated by Beelzebub, and transcended to the world of gray, to be the friction between black and white, light and dark, yin and yang, without the clarity of light, without the horror and evils of night, wreak the fuse in knots of combustion, and pelt the pilfering tide with a scorch. It's not really, it doesn't rhyme, but it's not, it might be free verse. I don't know poetry. Eh, I've only read like the very, very classic poetry, like Dante and Homer and Ovid and all that. And obviously Goethe, because come on, Faust. I swear, everything in part one of Faust is a gold mine, but then you get to part two and it's just like, eh. I just love it. I just love it so much. Anyway, here we're getting to I guess, the meat of the story now, or whatever. I don't know. He with his short story writing, he's more focused on ideas and like telling you ideas and actually giving you a story. Which personally I fucking love because I'm sick and tired of like straightforward plots nowadays. They're so fucking boring. He snapped open the lid of the box like a ravenous child opened up a birthday gift. Wow. Okay, I fucking love that. That's actually a really good comparison. The book rose up from its resting place at the bottom of the box alone. The glowing illuminated half of the entire basement. Sharp crimson, a mighty high contrast between the steely gray of the lights that barely shone. Muscles of roots strewn and grew from the spine of the book, lengthening the legs of the book like a spider aging way too fast. I like that. The pointed ends of the muscly roots drove themselves into the flesh of Tristan, into his arms, wrists, shins, thighs, torso, and neck. Tristan lurched with a root wrapped when a root wrapped itself around his heart but didn't falter. His eyes bulged from their sockets and pulsed. The veins on the whites of his eye were physically and visibly swollen. With every blink, he could feel the root zapping of himself his strength, but this was his duty, his calling. He nestled the chambers of his heart up to the rough wedges of the root that interlaced all of the piping. He made himself comfortable, at home with the beast. He could feel the microscopic moss that separated his life-giving organ from the book's life-taking organ. Wow, I love that. That's awesome. Uh, fucking scary ass body horror though. Like, good grief. A manifesting mainframe was required. Tristan felt the surging churn of power inside of him, as if the roots held some kind of divine adrenaline that gave him a creative expulsionary barrage. He knelt to one knee. He breathed in everything that he could, forced the air to compress in his lungs, and felt all the blood drive into his brain. This was the fuse of the bomb. When he felt the brain panic, he didn't stop holding in the air. He contracted every muscle in his body. The world opened up to him an enormous tidal wave of coherent fluid thought. The entirety of human existence could be explained through each second of thought that went through Tristan's mind. The book had rotated all the focus from a one-track human mind to an infinitely fast and directional power outage information. He's gonna go insane. I'm sorry. I know that's not what happens, but like, if this was actually happening to someone, then they were being bombarded with every piece of knowledge that mankind knows. I'm pretty sure they go insane. Just gonna say it. That wouldn't be pleasant. Tristan's eyes spasmed from all the inherent imaginative images that were raining down on him from the excess energy. He could hear the wind outside through the multiple layers of walls, the crickets chirping. Welts grew on welts grew on Tristan's chest around the book. The book had attached itself to the center of his chest and built a kind of pulley system to tilt, if and when Tristan needed to read the pages. He knew the pages were empty. He would have to write them. So now we're getting to the part where I stopped reading. Let's go! A pressure presented itself to Tristan, a universally enforced requirement to follow through with the actions the book deemed him worthy to pursue. Molding the apparatus's ambition, he felt the fire evoke the passion capable of fighting these ethereal forces. Silently plowing the coarse dirt of compassion into a vindictive slaughter, Tristan tampered with the seeds of his thought that allowed for a comprehensive waste mutilation. He created systems of organization for all the knowledge, compartmentalizing what he knew to be important for his mission, and discarding everything he did that didn't meet his standard of utility. The motion was fluid. He readied himself to breach back to the world of the museum while processing these efficiencies of mind. It seemed like a concussion blast of sound at every step because of the sensitivity to which his hearing had been amplified. At the portrait of Rembrandt, he now had a new diagnosis. It's an illusion of honesty. The ambiguity of the facial features in terms of morality and temperament are there to distract the viewer from the hoarse screams those that catered those oily aging marks. Rembrandt wanted to inspire fear, using delicacy of detail to entertain the viewer's perception of death and decay. The magic is there in terms of transformative interpretation. When you move your eyes, the image changes slightly, but the intense inferiority complex reigns supreme over the man like a barren, thunderous cloud. A cloud that dries up everything in its path. A poisonous cloud of dark gas seeping through the windows of your children's bedrooms to haunt the caverns of their unconscious as they sleep. The distinct but subtle fear of growing up. Automatic bodily decline. Smug. Holy fucking shit. Wow. Wowee. Okay, I love that. That is amazing. Good job on that one, dude. Holy fuck. A masterpiece riddled with intoxicating breaths. Tristan thought, stammering internally at the rogue ideal titles. My pernicious preferences come to fruition. Oh my god. I'm just imagining the witch being like, my pernicious preferences come to fruition. Like, come on, like, that's fucking amazing. Tristan looked at the light switch. He was ready to invite the hordes of supernaturals back from their hiding, but a stray desire demanded one more action. Livid with the ingratitude from his newfound prison sentence, he took a couple of steps over to the pink cushion, enormously elegant article of upholstery, and drove it into the dust with his bare fists. Wow, okay. Beating uncontrollably into the weak wood, it splintered under his skyfire. Istanbul would have burned him at the stake for such a crime. Okay, that's pretty funny. He felt the fear of an entire population come raining down on him, the grief, the anger, the fear, each and every mystifying opinion that his bodybuilding, empathetic muscle could ascertain. From the infinity of his imaginative flurry, these thoughts evoked a physical vibration. Now a tense ringing could be heard, the friction of the molecules quaking. Entertain yourselves. Make your thoughts meaningful to you, colorful to you, fun to engage with. Who cares what others think? Aren't we supposed to value our own energy, illustrate and materialize our futures? The futures of unlimited individuals. Manifest civilization. Protest the innate inefficiencies. Shred the poisonous oil until it's bloody. Nullify anything that isn't nuanced. Carve the portrait from the timber itself and light up livid with passion. Solve the problems with pure bludgeoning force. The lock is padded, break it in half. Beat the damn door down and gun down the targets. Replenish adrenaline. Hone the bones to a blade. Varnish the very virility you value as vile. My god. Okay, I went crazy there. This last sentence. Varnish the very virility you value as vile. I fucking love that. I love alliteration. Moi. Moi. Oh boy. Record the ceiling. Tristan's eyes transformed into frame-by-frame recording devices that saved video to memory. A problem could always a problem could be always not pressing record until after the memorable things happen. Tristan would have to be wary of this mistake. But he couldn't record all the time. It would be a cognitive overload. The pure associational reference points each memory would have, like traumatic images, with their searing recurrence, like an ever-tugging addiction to the panoramic files of experience. He wanted to try out the magic so he could be prepared for the times he would need it. The most pressing thing he felt the desire to record was the vast basement after the lights were switched off. The hypothesis was that he wouldn't see any swarms of various animals or creatures weaving willy-nilly among the rafters that stuck down from the ceiling. He started recording and shut the lights off, running up the stairs, two at a time at first, to first test for sound. The echoes of his feet burrowed far too excessive a weight in his attention. Tristan would have to listen when he eventually turned around to take in the entire opaquity of the scenery. Hand on the handle of the door at the top of the stairs, Tristan slowly turned his body to face the abyss. Not a single movement was seen in the black. The red light emanating from the book on his chest was deterring hallucinations. The strength he gained from the power of the book's attachment riveted him forward, stopped recording the ceiling. The first thing he saw when he re-entered the corridor was the malfunction light on the camera in the top right corner. The second thing he saw was his co-worker, Julio Cum Cumulonimbus. Cumulonimbus, the other security guard, walking towards him. The killer instinct settled in with a jerk. If it came down to the wire, Tristan would have to escape with the life of this innocent man. He didn't decide whether it was necessary. The decision was already sedimented into his programming, underneath the washing cyclone of potentialities forming. The main structure of his mental work were directed towards the creation of incantations that he would have to create and write in the pages of the book. An aircraft passed over the museum, but he knew that Julio didn't hear it, further rationalizing the careless awareness that worried him. Tristan knew that Julio was unconfrontational, but this scenario, him found exiting the basement, would definitely set off some fire alarms on Julio's suspicions. Tristan was ready to quietly subdue Julio if he pressed into the business of his mission too deeply. The languages fueling the coarse lightning, putrefying the boundless stores of knowledge into its poetic synthesizations, all concocted the first line of the ode in Tristan's mind. He could see it, feel it, taste it. He needed to write it down before it was gone, but Julio was approaching quickly with a questioning look in his face. Tristan couldn't reveal to Julio the book on his chest, so the only option remaining was to rid Julio of his awareness within the next few moments. The program was enacted. Tristan's eyes shot to the end of the corridor behind where Julio was walking. Tristan knew that Julio was antsy at his position, knowing he would cave if any trouble arose, and so the fear that Julio felt when walking the corridors at night definitely translated to the dangerously frightening hope for a supernatural occurrence. Julio was the one who wished for the existence of the erroneous, secretly believing in the very forces that sent him in delirious panic at the end of each shift. The survival of the day his only worship. The power of intent in Tristan's eyes caused confusion in Julio's. Julio turned around to see what Tristan was looking at. At the split moment of the turn, Tristan's flashlight was unsheathed and knocked over Julio's head, dropping him to the marble floor in a slump. Tristan, in a complete silence, stood over his victim for a moment, calm and collected, and took a deep breath. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Progression. He formed in his awareness. Progression. The roots were unleashed. One opened the door to the basement, and the other picked up Julio's body and threw it in. Tristan ripped the pen from his pocket and scribbled down the first line, the one to begin the incantation, to birth the beginning of the bleeding. The pen malfunctioned, the ink not showing up. The fears he held came true. He dug the point of the pen into his wrist until he pierced the skin. The blood was now on the tip of the pen. Tristan wrote the line, dipping back and forth. Fur into a fiery frenzy. Tristan said it aloud. Then he covered his mouth. The cameras would have heard the audio. The tape would need to be destroyed if he didn't want the effects of the spell harnessing anyone other than his targets. Okay, so we're done with chapter 1. It only took 29 minutes. Okay, overall, chapter 1 was really good. I liked it a lot. It just so much good writing there. So many good sentences, so much ideas here. Like, wow. I loved it. I loved it. I like how there's like a semi-quasi magic system here or something. I doubt it. I doubt he'd actually do that, but wouldn't surprise me, I guess. Um, Here we have chapter 2. Savor the malfunction that makes one malleable. Execute malfunction, thought Tristan. The thought slowly reverberated across the rest of his brain like a mucky blood fog, spreading its way into the depths of the brain-body connection. Mental will's saving grace. Execute malfunction, he repeated internally as he moved with purpose to the security room. If the trash was taken out, he would be in the clear, because that would mean Julio did it already, and he wouldn't have to worry about him waking up before the end of the shift. Tristan noticed that he came from the trash chutes when he walked towards him, but he could have been doing anything. Corridor B1, Avenue H, Avenue G, Avenue F, Corridor A1. The cameras were watching him. He could feel them on his back. He made sure not to look directly at any of them. Subtleties are the savior of the simpleton. Okay. Chest still faintly glowing through the security jacket. Tristan was on edge. Reality had been tingling the outer edges of no knowledge for far too long. The way you feel when you overbet a hand and are anxious to see if it paid off. I've never played poker, so I don't know what the fuck that feels like, but okay. The probabilities of utter failure were imminent and presently conscious. Tristan imagined all the things that could go wrong. Oh, it's that type of feeling. Okay, I know that feeling. A checkup was superior. A camera seen the light. The policeman on duty wanted to check out the museum while it's closed. Literally anyone seen him. Any questionably long glance. The trash still in the can. Too many uncontrollable variables to rest the mind from the suspense. The security door was locked. Because Tristan's arms were slower than the roots, one of the spindly legs slammed the keycard into the sensor. The door flung open with the same extreme amount of force that picked up Julio. Tristan's eyes locked onto the trash can by the door and felt a nauseating flush of remorse. The risk he took by throwing Julio into the basement did not pay off. The next actions would be paramount to the survival of Tristan's mission. He figured what he would do in seconds and thrust the door open once more and re-entered the labyrinth museum. Corridor A1, Avenue F, Avenue G, Avenue F, Avenue H, Corridor B1. Tristan flew open the basement door and walked down to the bottom of the stairs where he could see the shadow of Julio crumpled. He switched on the light and stepped over the body. One of the tentacles extended and tickled Julio into waking. Julio groggily and painfully sat up against the wall next to the stairs. He didn't even look up at Tristan at all. He put his head in his hands and started to take deep breaths. When Julio finally looked up, the first thing that he saw was the dim red leaking out into the dusty air of the basement. Tristan stared down at him and watched his eyes go back and forth from the red light to the dark of his own eyes. Tristan knew that his eyes were dark now because he watched Julio's pupils dilate when they were focused. The tentacles were also hanging out of his torso and resting the pavement flooring. Wait, they're not. I thought they were roots. But, I guess roots can look tentacly. Whatever. This is some, fucking grade A body horror type shit at this point, because, yes, there's literally a book that has roots. It's attaching itself via his body to him. Ugh, God, I hate that. I absolutely hate that image. Wrestling with the acquisition of completely foreign knowledge flooding Julio, his breath slowly deteriorated to frantic madness, corrupting his soul from the inside out. The magic of the book infiltrating. The source of the book's power was in Tristan's eyes. Once you look in, you can't look back. The past deteriorated in Julio's mind, and the present and the future remained. Julio forgot who he was. The imagination latched onto the problem and tried to imagine a past that made sense based on this present moment and the ideas of the future he held. It caused him to experience all of his emotions in a frenzy, the overload frying the circuits into a dead but explosive bowl of candle wax. Tristan laughed. In moments, Julio was in a fetal position, repeating the first lines of the book that Tristan wrote. Furl into a firing frenzy. When there's danger, create infamy, Tristan thought. The ramifications for finding Julio down here in the same state built up a foundation of superficial pride in Tristan's mind. His existence would be known and feared, inspiring delirium and confusion wherever he went. Despite what lingered in the back of his mind, this rush of arrogance fueled his motivation to complete the mission. And with Julio subdued and continually expressing the mantra that he was, left the light on and walked up the stairs of the basement. I swear, I love this so much. It's so fucking well written. The sentences actually kind of flow really well into each other. I like what's going on here. This whole idea of a book giving you so much knowledge that you literally accidentally become superhuman. It's fucking creepy, but it's so interesting too. I don't know. I might be reading this wrong because he said it was like some kind of manifesto on rage or whatever he said. I guess. I don't know. Corridor B1. A single piss colored light. The occasional shrouded painting. The shadows danced in the dark, limiting the torque of Tristan's manic rumination. The furious reverie compounding in his mind led him down twisted tangents. The spirit of Julio was lingering like the aroma of a decay that left his breath. The arrangement made incarnate. There was no need to take out the trash any longer. Wait, they could take my saliva samples from the gelatin in the trash can, Tristan thought. Humans and their shitty science, what a monstrous waste of time, Tristan thought. Bearing down in the security room, he thought he heard a car pull up in the museum parking lot. Movement ceased. Tristan's ears opened wide. The sound of the car wasn't there anymore. It had vanished in a moment. He knew it was there. He had heard it fair and square. The tension boiled him into speed at an alarming rate. He shoved open the security door, picked up the miniature plastic gelatin bowl, and drove into his pocket with the spoon. Enter vehicle. The maze he had to figure through gave him a sense of belonging. Knowing a space so well that he could navigate through countless passageways and arena-sized showrooms boded well for Tristan's efficiency. Tristan was busy pulverizing himself internally in order to brainstorm the next line without having to drive someone insane with its meaning. Actually, Tristan knew that a sacrifice had to be equal or evolved upon in order to keep producing lines. How he knew this information was not questioned, only immediately understood. This is like cosmic horror level bullshit. Like an idea that makes someone go insane. Yeah. Hello, Lovecraft. Good to see you again. Breaking into the night into the air of the night, the sounds washed over him like a mist. Freedom! Tristan's car and Julio's car were next to each other in the lot. A slight and fleeting reminder that Julio was his first victim. A friend had to be sacrificed already. How would the stakes rise from there? Would the final sacrifice be himself? What if there was nothing more powerful? These were the questions haunting Tristan as he scanned the lot. A breeze seeped its way into the pores of his skin, relieving some of the pressure heat of his body through steam. His skin was sizzling in the coolness. The door to the car was locked, so he rummaged through his pants and pulled out the key fob. Another click of the latch, and he was in the driver's seat, starting the engine. Tristan had to remove himself from the widest vicinity of the scene. Where could he go? I'll just drive and think later. There's too much resting in the sill of my mind. I'll have to let it flow and figure out the details later. Pulling out into the street, a delirium swept over him. Adrenal in nature. A symptom of the book, maybe, but he wasn't aware of the cause, just the overwhelming effect. A functioning but also debilitating panic. Driving down the street, he saw the entrance to the highway, a perfect path. Tristan switched lanes and cut off another driver, to which he heard a blasting honk. He didn't care. The move was made, and he was soon driving down the highway. Adrenaline gutted, Tristan floored the gas pedal. It took him seconds to pass cars miles ahead. The button to roll the windows down was pushed, so soon the entire car was warped into this turbine of wind. The rain was splattering on his arm as he held it out the window and drove with the other wheel. With the other on the wheel. He felt the fire surging him forward faster. He swerved far too fast and was hydroplaning every 40 seconds, just barely keeping his tires on a straightaway. That's the last thing he remembered, the hurling temptation to go faster while flipping and finally slamming. The only words that were in his mind when he awoke, flattened inside of his own smoldering car, were the words of his voice coming from outside of the window of his car. The other victim, lay on the hood of their own car from smashing through the windshield. Whispers came from their lips, whispers that seared into Tristan's unconscious as truly artistic severances from spirit. Savor the malfunction that makes one malleable, over and over. Savor the malfunction that makes one malleable. Oh, that was amazing. I loved that chapter. Wow, I got so caught up in that I didn't even stop to commentate. Imagine that. Imagine that when you actually get into something, when you actually really like literature, you don't stop very much to talk about it. But yeah, a sentence structure there was amazing. I love the ideas being talked about in this story. Obviously, I've said that before. I, I, I don't know if Tristan's supposed to be like a fleshed out character. I doubt it. I doubt it because like we've barely gotten to know this dude. All we know about him is that he has supernatural powers now from some kind of book or whatever. Chapter 3: Hone the Bones to Electrified Waste. That's an interesting title. Okay. Tristan rose to consciousness with a floating feeling inside, as if he were rising and falling in the slow wake at the center of the ocean, miles from land. He sat in this precipice between consciousness and unconsciousness for a minute, and saw an omen in the form of a dream image. The traumatic stress of these images left him goaded with his own effort to survive the deadly tug that was vacuuming his soul into barely breaching its cage. An incinerating energy removed himself from his body and transfixed a light above his head. The frightened screams of something was heard underneath him, but the light distracted him from the object to which he was torturing. The vibrations of his body were a lit match, burning him with friction. Tristan could feel the pain vicariously. He opened his eyes. The smell caught his attention before the light. A hospital. Clean disinfected rubber. The bustling of whispers and the bodies shuffling around on plaqued linoleum. A whirring ringing in his ears. Too high pitched to be comfortable, and then the pain swamped in. Rushing, breaking pain. Everywhere. It was as if his entire body were on fire, and the fire was meant to burn diamonds, or burn the earth, or burn the vacuum of space. Furious and unrelenting pain. With every automatic twitch of his body, a new volcanic erupted, and he had passed back into unconsciousness. Grasping the poignant thin air, his ribs crunched. It was excruciating to breathe. Tristan felt liquids soothing the veins in his forearm, but since it was the only relief he had to focus on it completely in order to endure the war of his soul to war itself back to reality. The roots started to move and expunge a cleansing and beautiful feeling into his body, a serenity more sublime than the most resounding euphoria, that dispersed over the pain like water over a smoldering grill, a replenishing drive towards the mission opened up in his mind, a rancid fury with the energy of a collapsing star kept his body completely still and breathing slowly. The message reverberating in his mind had been the same since he'd woke up, but he hadn't realized that it was there because of the pain. Hone the bones into electrified waste. His eyes presented a dazed glance around the room. The casts on his arms, torso, legs, and neck clamped the roots. Tristan was ready to rip out the hodgepodge of material from his anger when he noticed his mother and father huddled by the window. The focus resurfaced with lightning speed and accuracy. A pain was enacted. He had 15 seconds to find what he knew to be there somewhere. On the table to his right, behind the catheter, lay the defibrillators meant to bury their bodies in an infinite barrage of mallet hammers. Borganov Marvin and Wendy Marvin both looked at Tristan Marvin simultaneously. Their eyes met, each of Tristan's eyes, on one of his parents. The facial expressions of his parents grew slack. Their eyes lost their color, and the shading deranged to a pitch black. Wow. 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 Wowee. I'm in love with this. I need more. I need more. Oh my god. Okay, so he walked down the dark hallway and something made him turn around. A faceless main character, Tristan, needed all 7 different personalities to change hell to color-coded equality. The wasted dreamer, the obsessor. Each character is alive and well. I must communicate with them as the faceless character. Something about language converts them. I steal their souls. My work is exploration of the unknown by means of articulation. This exploration is traveling with the reader, entertainment. Wow, okay, you've got some big fucking ideas here, dude. Okay. Okay, overall this entire thing is really good. I like this a lot. This was a really good story. I think you should continue it. Like you said you wanted to make it, you said you had this idea for a while. It's going to be like over 50 pages or something like that. Fucking do it, man. This is amazing. This is fucking amazing. I'd love to read this. Read more of this. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. This was Callier making a new video today. Hope you guys have a good day or whatever. Now fuck off.